Greetings, my dear Minnow people. I'm so glad to see you. Here we are again discussing a very serious subject that we never want to experience: epithelial ovarian cancer. This is video number 420. It's the 8th video in our unit on epithelial ovarian cancer, and you've already discovered that it's serious business. Thus far, I've guided you through the role of your ovaries as a reproductive organ, the anatomy of your ovaries, the many different kinds of ovarian swellings, and the many different kinds of ovarian cancers. Now, we are zeroing in on the most serious ovarian cancer, serous epithelial ovarian cancer. And today we'll be talking about the serious statistics for this serious disease. And I'll be dead serious about it. In my book, whether you have the first edition or the second edition, all of chapter 32 is on epithelial ovarian cancer. And that entire chapter focuses solely on serous epithelial ovarian cancer, simply because it constitutes the vast majority of ovarian cancers and generates all the fear of ovarian cancer. What I'll do today is present the statistics that give this particular ovarian cancer such a horrible reputation. In essence, we all need to be dead serious about it. So let's begin with the overall average statistic for how common serous epithelial ovarian cancer is. This is called the average lifetime risk of ever getting it. The typical means of describing this is by stating that 1 out of X number of women will get the disease at some time during their lifetime. Serous epithelial ovarian cancer is considered rare in terms of how common it is. It occurs in 1 out of 78 women over the course of their lifetimes. Now, if you compare this to the other diseases we've discussed in this menopause education, you would not think of this cancer as any big deal. Take a look at these comparisons. What you see here is a simple chart with the diseases in the left-hand column and the lifetime incidence of each in the right-hand column. I've color-coded them with colors that we'll use throughout this video tutorial for comparisons. Heart attack occurs in 1 out of 3 women. Osteoporosis in 1 out of 4. Alzheimer's occurs in 1 out of 6. Endometrial uterine cancer in 1 out of 29. Cervical cancer occurs in 1 out of 45. Breast cancer in 1 out of 7. But serous epithelial ovarian cancer occurs in only 1 out of 78. So you can see that compared to all the other diseases listed, serous epithelial ovarian cancer has the lowest lifetime risk of all. The 1 in 78 translates to 1.3% of all women. And that, my friends, means that it is the least common of all cancers in women. Well, that's no reason to be dead serious. Why would any woman be so worried about getting it? Well, let's move on to some other statistics to find the answer. Let's address incidence. Incidence is the number of new cases of serous epithelial ovarian cancer in a particular period of time. The most common period of time used for incidence is 1 year. The lifetime risk statistic ignores details such as how many cases occur each year or how many women have the disease at any one time. Instead, it's a general parameter, but incidence focuses on these things. So how many women get serous epithelial ovarian cancer each year? Well, there are about 12 new cases of serous epithelial ovarian cancer for every 100,000 women per year. This represents about 2.6% of all new cancer cases. Well, that doesn't sound like such a serious matter either. Once again, that's no reason to be so dead serious. Could it be that prevalence rather than incidence is what's so serious? Prevalence is the number of women who already have serous epithelial ovarian cancer at any particular point in time. So maybe there aren't many new cases, but there are a lot of already existing cases. If so, prevalence could be serious even though incidence is not. This would be the case if serous epithelial ovarian cancer is a long-term, lingering disease. That's what you learned about Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's patients commonly live 1, 2, or 3 decades after diagnosis of the disease. Is that the case for serous epithelial ovarian cancer? Nope, my dears, it is not. Quite the contrary. Maybe I shouldn't be wearing this t-shirt. Prevalence is not what makes it so serious. So what does? Well, let's look at the next statistics. Survival rate. Survival of cancer is typically designated for the 5 years after diagnosis. It is given in percentages to designate what percentage of women are still alive 5 years after their diagnosis. And the overall 5-year survival rate for serous epithelial ovarian cancer is very low, at only 45%. This means that if you include all diagnoses at all stages of serous epithelial ovarian cancer, both early and late, only 45% of women are still alive 5 years later. And once again, if you compare this number to the 5-year survival rates for the other cancers we've discussed, you see that serous epithelial ovarian cancer has the worst 5-year survival rate of all. Here's a chart comparing them. The overall 5-year survival rate for endometrial uterine cancer is 80%. For cervical cancer, it's 70%. For breast cancer, it's 90%. But for serous epithelial ovarian cancer, it's only 45%. So now you're seeing the seriousness of the matter. Serous epithelial ovarian cancer is the deadliest of all female reproductive cancers. If you go a step further and calculate the death to incidence ratio of serous epithelial ovarian cancer, you discover that this statistic is enormously higher than all the other cancers. The death to incidence ratio is the number of deaths due to a particular cancer in a year-long period of new diagnoses of that cancer. So there could be a lot of new cases with very few deaths in a given year, which would result in a very low death to incidence ratio. Or there could be very few new cases with a lot of deaths in a given year, which would result in a very high death to incidence ratio. For example, the number of new cases of breast cancer each year is 10 times higher than the number of new cases of serous epithelial ovarian cancer. But the death to incidence ratio of serous epithelial ovarian cancer is 3 times higher than that for breast cancer. And this serious statistic holds true in comparison to all the other female reproductive cancers. Here's a graph depicting their individual death to incidence ratios. So this is where things get really serious. While few women ever get serous epithelial ovarian cancer, those who do typically die from it. The death to incidence ratio for endometrial uterine cancer is 0.75. For cervical cancer, it's 0.5. For breast cancer, it's 1.75. But for serous epithelial ovarian cancer, it's 6.5. So the risk of ever getting serous epithelial ovarian cancer is 1 in 78, but the risk of dying from it is 1 in 108. This means the risk of dying from it greatly outweighs the risk of ever getting it. This makes serous epithelial ovarian cancer a dead serious disease indeed. If we direct our attention to actual detection of the disease, how does diagnosis fit in? Well, it turns out that this seriously high mortality rate is due to the fact that the vast majority of diagnoses are made at very late stages of the disease. Very rarely is it diagnosed early. Over 2/3 of serous epithelial ovarian cancers are diagnosed at very advanced stages. And a late diagnosis almost always results in death from serous epithelial ovarian cancer. That's not only dead serious, it's also seriously deadly. This statistic is very unlike any of the other female cancers of reproduction also. And that brings us to the next serious statistic, prognosis. Since the vast majority of serous epithelial ovarian cancers are diagnosed at advanced stages of the disease, the prognosis is dismal. Even though overall prognosis for all stages is 45%, most cases have only a 30% 5-year survival rate. So it's the high fatality rate of this cancer that is so scary. And this is why I'm wearing this t-shirt. So now you know why this disease is so serious. It isn't likely that you'll ever get it, but it is likely that you'll die from it if you do. I hate to be so morbid, but those are the facts. The chances of getting it are extremely low, but the chances of surviving it are even lower. To summarize, serous epithelial ovarian cancer is serious, not because it's common, but because it's deadly. The typical late diagnosis results in typically low survival rates. My goal today was to really get your attention so that you tune in to all the subsequent videos in this unit. As usual, I'll cover everything you need to know in order to understand this serious disease. So come back next week to begin learning about the risk factors for epithelial ovarian cancer. And don't hesitate to go ahead and schedule a consultation with me at menopausetailor.me at any time. I can help you no matter what your situation and no matter where you live because I do all consultations via online video conferencing. Feel free to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Stories, and TikTok. And don't miss out on subscriptions to my channel and my newsletter. I just love giving you this education. And I love knowing that it will help make the rest of your life the best of your life, no matter what your age. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to give you the menopause education you deserve. Bye.